What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hive Prometheus. I know it's been a little while since I made a video. I was in the process of moving and I just had a lot of things going on, but I've played a couple games now, about 3 of Pariah Nexus that I feel are good enough for me to kind of go ahead and review. And I want to go through some of the innovations that I've seen that I've had to tweak in my lists in order to play the missions for Pariah Nexus a little differently. First of all, let me throw up a list that I've kind of been using in all 3 of those games. I might have had a little bit of a deviation in those between the second and the third game, but for the most part, I was trying to run the same thing multiple times just to kind of see how it was going to do against multiple armies. So let me throw up that list right here. All right, so looking at the list that I had, I'm still running Crusher Stampede. We got a lot of really cool buffs. We got buffs to OC if the monsters are unwounded. Untrammeled Ferocity now allows you to go through buildings as if you were a knight. Exocrine saw a buff to their strength. They go to strength 9 now, which helps with wounding light vehicles and transports. The Tyranid weapon went to d6 plus 6 damage instead of 2d6. So now that your average beforehand is now your floor for damage. He's much more consistent into T12 2 plus armor. He's not the most consistent compared to the Brain Council with all the Zoanthropes and the Neurotyrant. However, I haven't run that innovation yet because I think it's just too many points for the list. If I was going to do so, I would have to sacrifice another monster. It would probably be the Haruspex, and I would sacrifice the Hive Tyrant, and I might side grade the Norn Emissary to the Zoanthropes, and then throw in another Action Monkey. Here I've got the Hive Tyrant. He also additionally, as a new rule, got Assault and Lethals to shooting attacks added to his 6-inch aura. On paper, I think that's pretty cool. I've tried my best to play the missions and bubble up with my Exocrines. However, I think I'll talk more on how I feel about it later, but I'll just run through the list. I've got 1 Lictor for rapid ingress, or to grab board sides, or get into the enemy deployment zone for engage in all fronts, or behind enemy lines, or recover assets. 2 sets of Raveners. Their uppy downy is really useful for being anywhere they need to be on the board. The Biovore is still there to screen units, preventing them from going to parts of the board that you can't really have things advancing to. I have 1 Haruspex now instead of 2. I'm feeling like I'm kind of missing that second Haruspex, but for 15 more points, I could have a 1-eye, and I'm thinking about potentially throwing him out and putting in another HQ, potentially as a scary rapid ingress threat like I had previously. We've got the 3 Exocrines, 3 Maleceptors. That's the staple for Crusher Stampede, in my opinion, if you're going min-max. The same Rupture Cannon, Tyranid, and the Norn Emissary. So I like, on paper, I'm pretty happy with this, but going through some of the games, I'll explain more of my thoughts on why I think I'm going to have to alter this, and I'll provide a list that I think I'm going to have to innovate to at the end of the video here. So the first mission I played against Eldar. We played on mission F, layout 7. This map ended up being pretty difficult to gain any sort of line of sight for shooting lanes. You know, in general, you've got a long shooting lane that actually does come all the way across the board here, and then a big shooting lane that comes across the board here. It makes the middle an incredible crossfire unless you're able to bubble something up and hide in a corner right here with a small base. Even then, I think later in the game I was able to get my Norn to that location, but initially I thought this location is super safe to me. I can just advance the Norn up here, I can get him on, and he can just score me 24 primary because we had Burden of Trust as the mission, so he would score me 4, and then I declare him for Burden of Trust, and he would score me an additional 2 at the end of the turn. But as you can see, the power positions for us ended up being these big blocky areas with the most cover here, and then he decided to only put 1 Fire Prism here to kind of cover the line of sight here. I tried to be cheeky and put my Tyranid up on the first turn. He ended up moving all of his Fire Prisms over so that they could link fire down, and he ended up killing him in the first activation on turn 1. So I was feeling a little cheeky with the Tyranid. I really shouldn't have played that aggressive. I really should have tried to actually move out, hit on 3s, and then maybe if I wanted to, I could keep him within 12 of the Tyrant to get a free reroll. And then if I shot an Exocrine, I could be hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and if I rolled a 2, I could free CP it with the Tyrant. Because I believe Fire Prisms are T9, and the Strength 18 of the Rupture Cannon would have wounded on 2s. So I should have been more patient, and I think it really showed in my gameplay that this game ended up being a lot closer than it needed to be because I lost one of my big anti-tank pieces too early. I ended up untrammeling Ferocity, one of the Maleceptors, up here to babysit the Norn. So came in like that. This Maleceptor came in here to stage. This Exocrine came over to gain line of sight down this line. This Exocrine ended up dying. And then everything else is kind of just shuffling up. I did end up moving the Raveners down this way and the Haruspex down this way. This Maleceptor also grabbing this area here. So I felt like my turn one was grabbing primary that I could, restaging, and I feel like that's what Crusher has been for me thus far. I did end up having a Neuro Tyrant and the Hive Tyrant in this list. This was an earlier innovation, but I still have the 2 units of Raveners. I do not have a Lictor in this list, and I think that's one of the things I end up changing. I have a little bit of a cinematic view here. This is looking diagonally from my side of the board. And then as you can see here, I just have a bunch of creatures bubbled up on the side, looking potentially down this way. He had a bunch of Harlequins that were also potentially threatening any of my squishy stuff and had fusion pistols and lance on the charge with dev wounds. So I had some staying power. I had a high enough defensiveness that I could outlive some of his melee, but I really needed to just be careful with my primary because I think I had an upper hand with primary here just because of the Norn. So I'm bubbled up around the Tyrant. I think in this game I only ended up getting 7 lethals out of him. I was really hoping in order for him to pay himself off of just the lethals, he has to get about 10 to 12, and I'm hoping that late game he can go in and melee something and get a few more points back. But this ended up being pretty difficult just because of the amount of anti-tank fire that the opponent had. Later, I think this is at least turn 3. A lot of stuff has died. I've killed one of the fire prisms. He's kind of blocked himself back in his deployment so that he can't make a normal move to see out of these ruins. I was able to tow on with the Norn Emissary on the front objective here, keeping my Tyrant so that all my Extrins can have lethals. I didn't know that his Autarch Warlord move 14 had an auto 6-inch advance and was looking to move 20 and then move 20 to take my backfield objective. But going and reading the card in order to complete that secret mission, you have to control your opponent's backfield objective, not just be on it. So I thought I was going to lose by a couple points because it would have been a 20-point swing. He had some units back here. I think they're Swooping Hawks doing some actions in my deployment zone. Because of my 6-inch movement on my Tyrant and the line of sight that I had on my other bugs, I couldn't really shoot them. I was down to only about 5 models here. So I'm trying to hold my own on the objectives that I can control right now. So in all, I think I could have played this game better by being more patient with my Tyrant effects and using turn 2 to stage and really jump out when the opponent, has the opportunity to come and get primary, starting on their bottom of turn 2 or beginning of turn 3, and then I can I can trapdoor them. I can come out with as many models or monsters as I can. Know that I'm probably going to lose 2 or 3, but kill enough that it's going to hamper their game plan in the long run. Game 2 was against Tau. This person had a Hammerhead, Riptide, Storm Surge, one single unit of a Broadside, some Sunforge Crisis Suits, some, I think, Fire Knife with the Flamers, a Ghost Keel, 2 squads of, I think 2 squads, maybe it was just 1 squad of Pathfinders and Stealth Suits, and then Shadow Sun, and I can't remember if he had anything off the board. I don't remember if he did, but these are... I was able to purchase some plastic sheets off Amazon, cut out the footprints, and I was also able to acquire my own set of 3D printed terrain. So this, now I can set up something at home and I can practice staging, which I think is the next thing for me to do. I think I just need to practice staging my deployments, seeing where things need to go, and depending on what they have on either side of the board, getting the most out of my positioning and my movement. As you can see here, I've kind of conga lined behind the big piece of terrain in the middle, looking to potentially throw myself to the middle and draw fire. However, the Storm Surge essentially has line of sight on anything on these firing lines while he's in that building because of towering. So I knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to deal with the Storm Surge as it was. I was going to have to deal with everything in the middle and everything coming up to score primary. But my game plan ended up going all right. I think we're into turn 3 here because I was able to move up the majority of my monsters within range so that I could shoot stuff within the middle. I'm trying to distract his heavy firepower. The same thing ended up happening. I moved out my Tyrant effects, shot into the Hammerhead, and rolled double 2s and had no CP because I untrammeled Ferocity, something to get through the middle onto an objective. So there was nothing I could do about that. And then on the crackback, he had just enough firepower to kill my Tyrant effects. So this is 0 for 2 with my Tyrant effects. So I'm still trying to figure out I think I just need to have more overlapping fields of fire to kill their anti-tank if I'm going to ensure the life of mine. And that's the mistake now that I've made twice. I've kind of disrespected my opponent's anti-tank and not gotten any value out of mine. I know that when I do get to use him, he's going to be good. I just need to be a little bit more patient. I need to position better, and I think I need to have more support. If I can get heavy to hit on twos and reroll ones with symbiotic darting from an Exegron, I'm going to try that, and I also think I need to be within 12 of the Tyrant. I seemingly positioned him again too far outside. So potentially in the first turn, I need to be more wise with my CP usage and not use Untrammeled Ferocity if it's not the most important thing. Getting to a primary on turn 2 with my Norn is not going to be the end of the world, unless the mission has sticky objectives or gives me bonus points for being there on turn 1. But this game, I end up having to chew through the majority of the stuff on the top side of the board. I end up rotating. I did end up taking his home deployment to deny him defend stronghold, or I got storm enemy objective. So I got 4 points. I denied him 3, and then I denied him 5 for primary on priority targets. So that ended up being a pretty big swing. I think I won this game by roughly 20 points. Having the monsters be +2 OC when unwounded, my Norn was able to get there and be OC 7, and I out OC'd the Storm Surge at OC 6. Previously, I would not have been able to do that, so that is a fun little thing that was added. I appreciate that. The only bad thing is that now there's no incentive to get to your enemy's home objective unless they have defend enemy stronghold or defend stronghold, because capture enemy outpost is no longer an objective. That was a large 8-point swing that I liked having Leviathan. So after the Eldar game, this was my second win of Pariah Nexus. So feeling pretty good with this list so far. I don't know how good Tau are in the meta right now. I think that if he hadn't have had the Storm Surge and he had some other MSU units, this probably would have been a bit more of a slog for me, and I would have had to probably protect my backfield a bit more because he was able to take the Fire Knives and the Riptide and come back and take my enemy objective as well. I did not draw capture. I did not draw defense stronghold, so I didn't end up losing those points. And at that point, I had all 3 of the objectives on the top board here, so I didn't really lose anything from that exchange. All right, so third game of Pariah Nexus, I played against Death Guard. I have a few caveats for this game because I, truth be told, ended up leaving this game pretty dissatisfied. So the terrain, first of all, is altered. We are using proprietary terrain for the Denver Fight Club. This is specifically for a trainee, I believe, for the Denver Mountain Trolls to practice for an RTT. I think I probably should listen to that more as of the assumption of the game. The idea here was he had never played Tyranids. This was going to be more of a learning game. So all of my tactics and all the things I was doing were completely demystified, and I was explaining everything that I was doing as I was going. So there was no fog of war. There was no, usual tactics I was able to use against my opponent. Similarly, I think Death Guard are a pretty hard counter against Grocer Stampede because you can lessen their toughness by 1, and he also chose to lessen my armor save by 1. So a lot of his weapons end up being AP2 through AP5 on Meltas or things such as that. You end up just being able to pass a lot of damage through, whereas normally I'm able to tank a lot of damage and kind of throw out a medium amount of damage to keep up. This game was not like that. There were some, I think, big mistakes I made early on. I had a dead draw on my secondaries on turn 1, and I really should have used the New Order stratagem to draw a secondary that I could score on top of turn 1, even if it's just one of them, because I ended up losing this game by a very few amount of points. I'll say at the end of the battle report here. But I knew that I was going to be able to get my Norn onto my safe objective up here and just have him sit. Hopefully I had enough bodies and firepower to keep things off of the backfield objective here. I really, on my first turn, should have seeded a Spore Mine over here in front of the Cultists just to make them think about moving there, but I didn't. Similarly, I probably could have also put a Spore Mine here to prevent the Rhino from moving up next to the Spore Mine, because this ended up being a powerful staging area, similarly to how I have my Maleceptors back here. The Plague Marines and the Fights First and the crits and lethals on 5s with the CP ended up being the bane of this game. I did not focus my shots enough to take out the Plague Marines. He also spiked his saves pretty hard on turn 2, which essentially I think, I think between that and the few mistakes I made lost me the game. I'll just say it now. I lost 70 to 80, which sure is a close game, and Death Guard are a hard matchup for me, but I really feel like I probably should have won this game. but I'm beating myself up a little bit because, you know, at this point, I guess I'm 2-1 in Pariah Nexus using a similar list. I did have my Hive Tower tucked back here to the building. You can't see him, but he did untrample Ferocity out of the building on turn 2 to come up to the position where the Maleceptor is now. And I untrample Ferocity through the building with the Norn just to get him onto his objective here. I had the 2 squads of Raveners, and they could uppy downy, and sometimes they would uppy downy, and I wouldn't have anywhere to put them. So I think if I'm going to keep them in, I just need 1 squad of 3, not 2 squads of 3, and I'll drop down to having another Lictor. And I think having 2 Lictors instead of 1 is probably better. I also on this game had no battle line, and he had, you know, the 2 Plague Marines that ended up giving him 3 points for banners. That also was the 3-point swing that would have had me either winning by 1 or losing by 2. So that's another thing. I think as an innovation, I need to have 1 battle line in, even if it's just a squad of Hormigons. So if I were to drop the second squad of Raveners, I could put in a squad of Hormigons and have 10 extra points. And if I wanted to, I could upgrade that squad of Raveners to a squad of Gargoyles. So I think having Hormigons, Gargoyles, Lictor is better than having 2 squads of Raveners and a Lictor just for secondaries, because I think with the slight chance that you're going to get bonuses with battle line, and also I really needed to have something where on first turn I could potentially move up and screen that Rhino, or with Hormigons I could advance and charge and potentially surround them. This game, if I dealt with the transports early, I probably could have won. So having those 2 battle line units, I think, will allow me to do so. And transports right now are really good. As you can see here, he's dumped out all of his Marines in the middle. He was able to kill 1 of the Maleceptors. I was able to heroically intervene backwards 10 inches to go here. He was only able to pile in. This was a mistake we made. The new rules for base-to-base fighting is you have to be base-to-base with another unit that's base-to-base. He was within 1, but not base to base, and then had 3 Plague Marines behind, and those Plague Marines were able to fight. And those Plague Marines, I don't think ended up killing this Maleceptor, but they left him on 2 instead of 4. So a little mistake there. Also, I finally am able to use the Tyranid effects here. I end up shooting one of the mini knights here and doing 19 damage. Finally, feels good. I threaded both shots through, rolled pretty high. He does have the potential to kill things. He's honestly there to just shoot something T10 plus, blow it away, and hopefully get his points back. Sadly, though, he was not able to kill anything else, so he didn't get his points back. And I think that was another reason I ended up losing this game. If on turn 2, this guy saved 2 5-ups and was left on 9, and I ended up having to move up my Norn and charge him to kill him. So potentially eliminating these 2 would have saved Melta shots coming into my tower effects that would have had him live. So it's just a dice game. You know, he spiked 2 5-ups, got pretty lucky. Even having 1 go through, I had a pretty high chance. I had about a 58% chance to kill him even with 1 shot, because it would have been, I just need to roll 3 on d6 plus 6 to do the 9 damage to kill him. But c'est la vie. This game, as I said, ended up being 78 to 80. This was the last picture I took. The proprietary terrain here pulled down here made it so that it was harder for me to skirt the bottom side of the terrain, but it made it easier to go through. I think that was to his advantage because he had the Rhinos, the Knights, and things that could come through here. Similarly, I think having the buildings rotated so that the small footprints were here and not here and here really made it difficult for me to sweep around and contest this. I was actually unable to kill this Rhino, and this Rhino was able to, I think he was able to complete one secondary doing sabotage. So if I was also able to deal with this transport earlier, that also would have been the 3-point swing that would have had me win the game I won. So there were just like 4 or 5 things that were just enough to win this game. So I guess now as I'm talking out, I shouldn't be as salty about it. You know, I think if we played this game again and I re-optimized my list to have Battle Line, not have the Raveners, have the Gargoyles and the Hormigons go deal and with transports and screen, I probably could have won this by 5 to 10, assuming I played a perfect game. All right, so looking at the list innovations, as I said, if I'm going to play that Walker list, I think I need to have Battle Line. I need to have Gargoyles back. I need to have Hormigons back. I can only really fit a Lictor right now, but I'm really wondering if I had 5 extra points, if I could squeeze in a second Lictor and just cut out the Biovore, but I think he still has utility. And everything else from there is the exact same. The 1 Haruspex, triple Exocrine, triple Maleceptor, Tyrant effects with Rupture Cannon, and the Norn Emissary. I was half tempted after my game, after the Death Guard game, to just be like, I'm done with the Tyrant. But I'll keep keep him in rotation just to see if, I think I had enough mistakes piloting it that it's not the Tyrant's fault. So I will try to keep him in that list. The other list is just Old One Eye's back in, the double Harspecs are back in. I've got the 10 Gargoyles for my one battle line so they can't do the secret mission, and I have something for extra scoring. I've got the one Lictor, the Pyrevore. Honestly, the Pyrevore is just another Lictor without Lone Op. I'll just reserve him and throw him on a board edge. The Bivore's still there. And then the slew of monsters, the double Harspecs, triple Extrin, triple Maleceptor, Rapturevex, Norn Emissary. I think eventually I'm going to be more happy with that because I need all these utility pieces and these monsters to run around and kind of do their own thing independently, except sometimes the Harspex is going to be next to the Maleceptor, so I get his strength 8 mouth attacks, or the Rupture effects and the Extra have to tag team to kill something, just so I can reroll ones. But everything else has a role that they can go do by themselves. Bubbling up next to the Walkrant to get lethals on shooting, I end up wanting to get more value out of that than I really naturally do. And I think the problem is that the Exocrines have to be the ones to get the lethals, not the Maleceptors. The Maleceptors have to go get on objectives and contest. So I just need to drill it into myself that if anything's going to be getting the lethals, it's going to be the Exocrines only, and they're going to be kind of bumbling up and walking up with the Walkrant anyway. So those are kind of just my initial thoughts on innovations for list building with Crusher, Stampede, and Pariah Nexus. Some of those things you'll be able to use to translate to your other detachments. I think the more usable ones right now are definitely Vanguard, Onslaught, Nexus, and Invasion. Assimilation is also doing very well right now. I think the one that is most hurt is Unending Swarm because of the change to bringing back destroyed units. You can only do that once, not multiple times. So I think a lot of people who are playing Unending are transitioning their Unending list to Invasion, just so that they could play with the 5-up Feel No Pain. It ends up being the resiliency that you were originally seeing with small Griblies in those lists. Otherwise, I'm going to try to be more consistent about making my videos now because I ordered a game mat. I have that coming. I'm going to set up a table. I have my own footprints and terrain. I want to make some videos looking at building lists for different detachments with help, probably, because I've only been doing list building with Crusher for so long. It's been essentially 7 months. But I want to have those videos where I can show staging of units, where things are hard-cornered, and the appropriate positioning so that you have to jump on first turn or second turn. Similarly, coming up, I think once we have a little bit more data and people have played more of a critical mass of games, I do want to do another community tier list, so that will be coming up probably in the next week or two. So I have some ideas, got some inspirations, and I hope to share those with you guys going forward. But I want to thank everybody who subscribed to the channel and helped the channel grow. I like being of service, and I hope that this really helped you today. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time on Hive Prometheus.